From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on the art and science of influencing others. I love to talk about this because leadership and influencing other people is an incredibly simple art. Leadership can be defined as the ability to influence someone to do something else. And that requires creative skill and imagination, right? To be able to influence other people, positively or negatively. If you're influencing them, you're leading them. And that's very simple. I love the definition of art as the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination. And that's right from the dictionary, one of the definitions of art. But leadership and influence is also incredibly dynamic science at the same time, because there are thousands of factors and variables that determine our influence at any given time with any given person, right? Complex is an understatement when you think of all of the things that determine our influence with someone. And the definition here of science is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experiment. That's a little bit more in-depth definition than art, right? But what that's really saying here is that science is based on structure and principles. So influence is a science because it's based on structure and principles that we can learn and that any one of us can apply to increase our influence and change behavior. So influence is a science, but it's also that art, right? Because it's incredibly imaginative, and it takes skill, and it's based on personality, right? So leadership and influence is a science in that we absolutely all can apply the principles, but how we apply the principles is where the art comes in. Anyone can learn to improve our influence with other people. There's no doubt about that. And like any skill, we can get better with practice and time, experiment what does work, reflect on what didn't work, and be willing to learn. So leadership and influence isn't just what we do, that's the science, but it's how we do it. It's how we do it. And, whether influence is an art or a science is not what's really important. We can think of tons of people in our lives, anyone in our lives, right, that we know life would be better if we have more influence with that person. More influence over the boss, more influence over our coworkers, our team members, more influence with our children, and even our spouse. We all need influence to be successful, and we all want influence to be significant. So, how do we become more effective at applying the science of influence and developing the art and skill? In other words, how do we become more effective at it? So, when I think about this, it's really a simple question, right? We become more effective at influencing others based on the choices that we make and the actions we take. So if our influence is based on our choices and our actions, then we need to make better choices and take better actions. I was speaking to a group of young ladies last week, and this was a point I really wanted to share with them, is that, these are our young youth, teenagers, and they have their whole lives ahead of them. And they're in such a fantastic position now to really make some great choices and some great decisions. And life is better when we make better choices and take better actions. Because, like I shared with them, good choices have good positive consequences, and bad choices have negative consequences. And when we apply that to terms of influence, we increase our influence when we make good, positive decisions, especially relative to dealing with other people. Now, I promise you, the number one person in the world that you will ever have the most difficult time influencing is the one sitting in your chair right now. And if you don't believe me, think back, because you probably have, if you're like me, you've had an opportunity to set a New Year's resolution in the past. And then, like 10 days later, you give up on it. Sometimes we set goals to, I don't know, quit smoking or exercise more or drink more water, right? A lot of us have set goals, and most of us have not carried through on those goals. We made a commitment to ourselves and didn't keep it. So that proves that the number one most important person, most difficult person to influence is ourself. But when we are better and more effective at influencing ourselves to make better choices and better decisions, that helps us increase our influence with other people. So here for an example, my husband Mac, he always talks about he really doesn't like to read, and he does not like to read. I can tell you, he just downright cannot stand to read. Now I love to read, but Mac is just, he does not like to read. But every single day, he makes the commitment to himself that he's going to read a little bit. Just a paragraph is his goal every single day. He doesn't set out to read a whole chapter or even a whole page or a whole book, but just one paragraph a day, because he says he knows that he can commit to that and carry through with it. And because he reads every day, he's been able to learn so much about influence. But the knowledge that he's gained has also helped him be more effective and has increased the influence he has with other people. Now, a really good example of sometimes if we make a good choice, even when it's not the easy choice or the fun choice, that can lead to more influence, especially over time. Now, a lot of us can see an easy correlation between making a bad decision and losing influence very quickly. Making a bad decision and ending up in jail on Friday night, right, will definitely decrease your influence with a lot of people. But a lot of times we don't always see the benefit of small choices compounded regularly over time. And I think that's where we can leverage both the art and the science of leadership and influence. It's an art to decide how and when and what choices and decisions to make, but the science comes in leveraging that every single day, the power of compounding good choices every single day. They don't have to be big. I was reading Amy Cuddy's book, Presence, last week. And I love the concept in there. She talks about nudging your way to life changes. And because a lot of times we get tangled up in big goals, and there's nothing wrong with that. But she talks about nudging your way, or setting a small goal every single day really can help you compound the power and the change and the transformation. And so I loved the term nudging, right? Nudging our way to better decisions. And so it was interesting. I was getting ready to run this morning, and I'm back to training for a race. I've got a marathon coming up in the fall. And I know that I need to improve my time, or I want to improve my time over last race. And so I started thinking about nudging in terms of training for my race. In other words, don't think about shaving, 20 minutes off of my time, although that would be great. But what if today I just say, I want to do 1 second better than I did last week? Right? Same course, same pretty much mileage and distance, and pretty much the same conditions. It's summer, it's hot. But what if I just nudge 1 second better than I did it last week? And what if I did that every single week and over the next 5 months leading up to my race? Right? That would be, that would be almost 20 seconds faster by the time I ended up to the race. And that's a huge difference. 1 second doesn't sound like a big difference, but if I compound that every week for the next several months, that's going to end up being a significant difference. And so I just tried it this morning, and I just said, you know what, 1 second, if I can nudge 1 second faster per mile than I did last week. And you know what? I did it. It wasn't just 1 second. Actually, it was 2 seconds better this morning than it was last week. So my point here is that a lot of times when it comes to influence, we fail to realize that it is a science that we can apply. And so thinking about the ways that we influence other people and the decisions that we can make that increase our influence. Maybe reading personal growth and leadership books is one way that you can nudge your way to increasing your influence. Maybe it's committing to watching, one TEDx video a week. Whatever it is for you, whatever your best way to learn and grow, just making sure that you are intentionally applying that consistently really helps you increase your influence. And thinking about who you want to influence and why you want to influence them and how you can influence them. Very important questions to think about, because when we can be more intentional about it, we can be more effective at it. We must be able to apply the practical activities that encompass behavior, namely ours, and the rest will take care of itself. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.